good evening or good morning, whichever it is, wherever you are, and when you watch this. Um, Thank you again for your continued support and in watching my videos that I've sent out previously, and for the comments that I've received. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Today, once again, someone came over to me and said to me he's very depressed, very discouraged, very disillusioned about what's going on in the world. And I told him, I said, first of all, I understand, but you have to remember, like I mentioned, that what we're going through now, is the final battle, the final war against Amalek, Erev Rav, Edom, the left. It is the final battle against the forces of evil. And this final battle, no one said that the evil will go easily. And whatever is happening is all happening for our benefit and for the benefit of destroying evil the best and most complete possible way. So yes, it doesn't look so encouraging when people are still not being able to open their businesses and things are being economies are being destroyed, or when there doesn't seem to be justice anywhere for any kind of misdoings. People are stealing elections and no judges, no legislatures. People should be standing up, whichever party you're from. But if all these various different claims and sworn affidavits from people who've seen and attest to the fraud that takes place, why would anybody want to have a fraudulent situation? It's not good for anybody. It's not good for anyone. So, point is that it looks as if there is no hope and there is nothing that we can do about it. And perhaps that's exactly the case. Perhaps that's exactly what is meant to be shown. That we have absolutely no recourse but to rely on God Himself. We have in history 3 redemptions that took place. And in each and every one of those redemptions, it looked like there was absolutely no recourse. That none of the natural ways of complaining to the people in charge or trying to go to the courts or trying to do, negotiations was going to help. The only thing that helped was that God came and saved and redeemed His people. The 3 redemptions we're talking about are the redemption from Egypt, where the Jewish people were formed into a nation, received the Torah, and then were eventually guided to the land of Israel. The second redemption was many years later, after the destruction of the first temple, and then almost 70 years after the destruction of the first temple, in the Persian Empire, there was a man, Haman, that wanted to destroy all the Jewish people, literally kill them out physically. And it looked like there was going to be no way to get out of it. And then God saved us. And the third redemption, one which gets a bit less, doesn't get as much press, so to speak, as a redemption. And that's the story of Chanuka. And we'll see there also, things looked completely dire, that there was no way that any natural cause was going to save the Jewish people. And then through amazing miracles, the salvation took place. We're going to spend a little bit more time today on the Hanukkah redemption, mainly because Hanukkah is coming up in a week, but also because the situation that is taking place right now in the world mirrors, really more than ever, the Hanukkah redemption, the Hanukkah miracle. We're going to understand exactly what was taking place during the time of Hanukkah and see how much it is exactly like what's happening now. Before we do that, though, I want to also point out that we are waiting for the final redemption. And many people say, actually it's the Gemara and Chazal, our rabbis, that the way the redemption took place in Egypt, that's how it's in the future going to take place when Mashiach comes. But I want to maintain that the final redemption is going to have characteristics of all three of the major redemptions that took place in our history. And that's the reason for these three redemptions, so that all three are going to happen again together when Mashiach comes. Aspects of all three. When the Jewish people were led out of Egypt, there was nobody, really, who did anything except for God. God did everything. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he picked up a stick, and Aaron picked up a stick, and they moved their hand, and they said something, whatever. But it was all facilitated through them by God 100%. The people had given up. First of all, they were completely involved in their suffering, in their slavery. They had no time to rise up. And even when, as we mentioned in a previous class, when Moshe Rabbeinu went at first to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh said, "What are you asking for? What is this business? You must have too much free time." So he made it worse. And even Moses said, "This is redemption," and God had to say to him, "You'll see what I will do." So even Moshe Rabbeinu had, I wouldn't say chas v'shalom, God forbid, doubts, but he himself was saying, what's going on over here? So the fact that there doesn't seem to be anyone who's going to stand up and lead us, it's not a problem, because God will come and do it all. And that's what we see from the redemption from Egypt. In the war with Amalek, Moshe put his hands up, and the Jewish people were winning in the war against Amalek. When he put his hands down, Jewish people were losing. So Aaron sat on one side and Hur sat on the other side. They held Moshe's hands up until the war was over. And the Mishnah asks, Moshe's hands are waging war? They're winning wars and losing wars? But the Mishnah says to tell us that when Moshe's hands are up, signifies looking up to God for help. It's not Moshe that's doing it. Moshe's hands aren't winning wars. Moshe's stick wasn't creating the miracles that the 10 plagues that brought us out of Egypt and split the Red Sea. It's God doing everything. It was clear. Be'aminu b'Hashem, they believed in God. U'Moshe avdo, Moshe his servant. So when it looks like there's nothing or no one that's going to be able to lead us, don't worry. That's number one. That's the message from the first redemption, that God is going to do it all. It says, what are you crying out to me? It says, don't worry about it. Hisyat Tzavu, stand by and see the salvation of God. That's it. Can't do nothing. The second Purim, by the way, is also extremely significant. Because as much as I mentioned in the previous, one of the previous classes, that starting about a year ago after Rosh Hashanah of 2019, Already the machinations, the things behind the scenes were in place to bring the left back into power. Things were taking place. But the whole rising of this COVID-19 situation, coronavirus, that took place actually around Purim time. Some places, some countries right before Purim, other places right after Purim, but it took place Purim time. I always believe that when something happens, it's very significant to try to think about what time of the year is it happening. Something happens during the 3 weeks, Tisha B'Av, sad time of the year, and invariably means a bad thing that's happening. When it happens around Purim time, it has to mean a good thing is happening. So when this whole COVID thing was taking place, this corona, this Chinese virus was taking place, I was thinking to myself, it's happening Purim time. Can't be bad. What does it mean? And then it just kept going on and on. Didn't stop. I thought it was going to be a short thing because it's happening Purim. It's going to be for the best. Then I realized that it was for the best. Because this Purim marked the final rise of the left, Amalek, Erev Rav, Edom, Satan, the evil element in the world, saw its final rise. And as we have a verse that's always translated to mean the pride comes before the fall, Hebrew lifnei shever, going before the breakup, the break apart, the destruction, comes the arrogance. It's a little different. Pride comes before the fall. It means to say that, oh, you fall, you had pride that caused it. So when it says that God allows the arrogance to be able to facilitate a much greater fall. So when we saw that Purim time was the time that Amalek started to blow up, started to get very powerful and strong, very arrogant, completely out of control, with all kinds of tyrannical regulations and all kinds of out of control over people, almost universally, that definitely meant that this was their final mightiness, their final greatness that's going to happen, which is going to end up in their final fall. And every time you see more and more arrogance taking place, more and more power to them, it's good. Because the fall and the destruction is going to be that much more complete. Because as more and more people are joining, as more aspects of the society is showing which side they're standing on, like I said in another class, keep referring to my other classes, no, but someone has to watch them, right? No, so in the other classes that I said that this is the time to choose a side. The sides are being very clearly defined. And so we see now people that we thought were reasonable. No, they're showing that they're not. Judges, courts that we expected they're going to be the ones to show that they're going to take the lead. No, they don't. Legislatures, no, they're not. It looks almost hopeless, but it's not. Because just as in the story of Purim, first of all, that Haman became so powerful that he actually was able to get a decree made to destroy every single Jew in existence, because every single Jew was under the control of the empire of Ahasuerus. So every single Jew was under the risk of being destroyed, the only time in history. The turnabout that took place in this miracle of Purim was that much more significant. It went from extremely dire, more dire than that, there never was. Because not only was the Jewish religion under attack, but the Jewish physical existence of their lives were a threat of destruction. Nothing could be more hopeless than that. The king couldn't talk to. The advisors, nothing. But God went ahead and put it into place. Before the whole story of Haman, he put Esther into place, and she and Mordecai, of course, together with the help of God, were going to save the Jewish people. But there you have another thing, see? Over there, everyone got together in unity behind Mordecai and Esther. It doesn't look like that's going to happen now. The biggest problem we have is a problem of unity. I mean, it'd be nice, but the way things look like it. So that aspect of the complete threat and the complete arrogance to a point where they had so much power they were going to facilitate the most evil thing of destroying every single Jew. That was in place. Nothing more hopeless than that got flipped around. And the exact opposite took place, where the Jewish people were in control of the whole empire for the most part. Achashverosh became almost like a puppet to Mordecai and Esther. And then from that, there was the pathway to the rebuilding of the second Beis Hamikdash, the second temple. Flipping around, that is what's going to happen now too. We may not have the aspect of the whole Jewish nation unifying behind a leader, at least initially, but maybe perhaps when the leader reveals himself who he is, then maybe we will have that. But the point is that from the Purim story we see the complete hopelessness that there never was before, and that was able to be turned on its head, and the redemption and the salvation took place. Now brings us to Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a many ways a very misunderstood holiday, because Hanukkah, people think, simple story. It was the evil, wicked Greek leader wanted to just destroy all the, not destroy physically, but destroy the Jewish religion. He wanted to have the Hellenistic culture influence and take over Jewish culture. He instituted all kinds of laws against following Jewish law. Wanted to wipe out religious Jewish culture. It was this non-Jewish evil man. He wanted to go ahead and destroy the Jews, and the Jews stood up for themselves, and they saved the Jewish state. It's not what happened at all. It's not what happened at all. If that was a story, that would be no different than many other times in history, where you had pogroms, you had an evil leader, Holocaust, etc., etc., a non-Jewish evil leader that wanted to destroy the Jewish people. That's not what happened at Hanukkah time. Hanukkah, actually, it was the Jewish people that wanted to destroy Jewish people. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting that the parsha that usually precedes, the portion of the week that we read in the Torah that usually precedes Hanukkah, this year actually, it's a rarity, it actually falls out that it is the Shabbos of Hanukkah, is Vayeshev. Vayeshev, one of the key stories, is that the brothers, just I'll say very quick, got jealous of Joseph, and they felt threatened by him, and so they arranged to have him killed. In the end, they decided to sell him as a slave, and he went down to Egypt. The Sforno, one of the commentaries, one of the medieval Torah commentaries, says that when the brothers sold their brother, this set the stage that throughout history, Jews will always try to sell out other Jews. And the biggest problem we're going to have is not from non-Jews threatening the Jews, but from Jews trying to sell out other Jews. And he brings the example of the Hashmonaim, the story of Hanukkah, as one of the examples that took place in history where that was the case. You may say to yourself, what do you mean? It wasn't the Jews against the Jews. It was this Antiochus, this mad king, this evil Greek who did it. No, that's not what happened. And to understand, we have to go back a little bit and realize the whole historical story of Hanukkah. That will be taking place in the next video coming right up.